Are you thinking about changing your own oil in your vehicle? Maybe it's the first time, maybe it's just been a while. Either way, I've got a list of 10 things I want to discuss with you that I don't feel like really got brought up enough in the different oil change videos that I watched. Now, I recently just got done changing the oil in my F-150 Raptor, and to be completely honest, it's been a while since I did it. Now, I'll tell you up front, I've never been the guy that really changed my own oil every single time. I've really never had any huge problem taking my vehicle to the dealership for basic maintenance kind of things. But more recently, I just kind of made the decision that I wanted to kind of get back into it a little bit. It is a relatively simple process, but I hadn't done it on this vehicle yet. I used to do it on my old F-150, which I made a how-to video on. If that's something you're interested in checking out, you can look at that when you're done with this video. But for different reasons, I just wanted to do it myself this time around. That said, I've done it enough times that I have a few extra thoughts that I want to add to all the other oil change videos that you'll find on YouTube of some things that I find don't really come up in a lot of those other videos, or maybe not as much as they should. And that way you have a better idea of what you're really getting yourself into, if it's worth it for you, and honestly why I think it's a great idea for you to learn to do some of this kind of basic maintenance yourself. All right, number one on my list. It's messy. Every vehicle out there is a little bit different. Their drain plugs, their oil filters, they're all in different locations. Maybe the refill spout is in a different spot than you're used to. No matter how careful you are, I would say 9 times out of 10, you are going to spill a little bit of oil somewhere, or get it on you, your clothes, whatever. So that's something you should always be prepared for. And not only that, the tools you use will have to be cleaned. You're gonna use the ratchet and socket to take that drain plug off. Chances are you might get a little bit of oil on it. The funnel you use to refill your crankcase, it's gonna be coated in oil when you're done. Any gloves or paper towels you use are gonna get covered in oil, so you need to have a spot to throw those away so you don't make a bigger mess. These big drain pans, right? Right now, this one's halfway full of oil, but the front of it is still coated in oil, so you have to wipe that down. The last thing you wanna do is bring that messy thing into your garage without it being cleaned properly, and now you've got oil all over your garage floor. And last but not least, your driveway, or wherever you're changing your oil. It's very easy to spill just a single drop of oil on your driveway. In the grand scheme of things, that may not be a very big deal for you. But if you have a pretty nice, clean driveway that you're working on, or maybe you have a really annoying HOA, they may have problems with that if you make a bigger mess. So things you should always have on hand. It's kind of nitrile gloves, right? Get some heavy duty ones. These aren't that strong. Honestly, they kind of ripped on my fingers while I was working on my truck. I'll get the heavier duty ones. Paper towels. Again, I highly recommend the blue shop towels. I just happen to have some of these on hand, so I was gonna finish up the roll. Funnels. I use these to refill the engine with oil. That way I don't make a mess, spill a bunch of oil on my engine. They're gonna have to clean up. I also bought one of these. This is a little oil drip mat. I just bought it off Amazon. It's pretty good size. It fits right up under my truck. Honestly, this worked great. I'll say too, this is a new oil drain pan that I got. My last one didn't work that great. It was one of the big circle ones that just had a spout on the end. It held a lot of oil. I never really had any big spills from it. However, it was really prone to leaking. So I really enjoy this jerry can style that I can stand up on its edge when it's done. Number 2, do you have a plan B? Now the reason I ask this is because anytime you're working on a vehicle, things can go wrong. Now typically with an oil change, your first step is to actually drain the oil. What happens if you realize you bought the wrong kind of oil? Or maybe you didn't buy enough, or your oil filter doesn't come off. Maybe when putting your drain plug back in, you strip those threads a little bit. What do you do then? Now there are some best practices you can put in place to kind of prevent you from doing that sort of thing. Some people actually start by taking off the old oil filter before they drain the engine. Make sure you're putting that oil plug back in by hand, only torque it down at the end. Always have a little extra oil on hand. These are all simple things you can do, but sometimes things just happen, right? So always consider, what is your plan B? If you run into an issue, do you have a way to get to a parts store if you need to? Or are you on your own? For me, since it had been a while since I had last changed my own oil, I made sure my wife's car was here just in case I needed to run out to the store and grab something. Number 3, cost savings can be minimal. Now, if cost savings are really important to you, just understand that the difference between doing it yourself and doing it at a dealership, you're really just kind of saving labor charges in a lot of cases. Unless you're going out and buying the cheapest oil you can possibly find, which I really wouldn't recommend. But if you're buying the same kind of oil and filters that they use at the dealership, you're kind of saving yourself the cost of the labor charge, which depending on where you're at could be a lot, and maybe they charge you a little extra to recycle the old oil or have some other fees on there. But just understand that savings might not be as much as you thought. And if you're like me and you go out and buy this sort of expensive stuff, some would say a much more premium oil, you're honestly probably going to spend a lot more than if you just take your car to the dealership. And all that's assuming you already have all the tools to do it yourself. Things like some sort of oil filter wrench, one of these drain pans, the ratchets and sockets you need. All that costs money. But the benefit is you only have to purchase those things once. Number 4, not all oils are the same. Now, what a lot of people tell you to focus on is the correct viscosity, temperature ratings. I'm not a mechanic. I'm sure there's a more technical name for this. But you see on this jug, mine's a 5W20. So you do have to make sure you get the right stuff. But also understand, a lot of newer vehicles all call for full synthetic motor oil, right? That's what I used. However, you still can buy just traditional motor oils. Probably going to be a lot cheaper, but understand they may not have the same kind of protection factors. You may not be able to keep it in your engine as long. Good rule of thumb back in the day when I first started driving was using conventional motor oil. Typically, you would change your oil about every 3,000 miles. When full synthetics came around and really started getting popular, a little more mainstream, those recommendations bumped up to more like 5,000 miles. You look at this AMSOIL right here, it claims up to 25,000 miles of protection or 1 year. Now, am I going to leave that oil in my truck for that long? No. But if it's truly got the protection to last that long, then I know it's going to help me keep my truck running as long as possible. You also got to be really careful depending on where you're buying your oil. Understand, do you have a gas vehicle or a diesel vehicle? Make sure you use one of the online tools available to you, either on AutoZone or Advanced Auto or a website like AMSOIL, to find the very specific oil for your vehicle. You can always check your owner's manual as well. Get the right stuff. Number 5, if you're going to start changing your own oil, you need to add some sort of regular inspection routine to that process. Now, one of the big benefits I liked about going to a dealership to get my oil changed is they would always do some sort of 100-point inspection on your vehicle. Now sure, a lot of that stuff is probably fluff, but if you get a good technician, you do get a lot of good regular information to help keep an eye on the rest of your vehicle. Things like your tires. Are they wearing evenly? Have they been rotated? I know on my truck pretty soon I'm going to have to get new tires. They're still safe right now, but they are on their last leg. Additionally, I know my brakes, specifically the rears, are getting a little worn. I recently had my belt tensioner go bad. All these kind of things, unless you know what you're looking for, you may miss if you start doing a lot more of your oil changes at home. So while it can be a benefit changing your own oil at home, you don't have to worry about getting upsold on some other thing that has to be fixed today. You do need to learn what to look for when it comes to some of those other common maintenance items. That way you don't miss any other big looming issues, and before you know it, your brake pads are shot and you've destroyed your rotors and calipers and all that. Number 6, time saved. Now this is where I think you have the biggest impact of changing your own oil. These days, a lot of dealerships are struggling to get enough technicians. And that's a bigger issue where I live now because there's only one Ford dealership. So if I can't get an appointment with one for an oil change, there's nowhere else I can go without driving for about 3 hours. Now that's not going to be the case everywhere, but the big point is changing your oil yourself gives you a lot of freedom. You can do it when you're available. A lot of dealerships are going to want you to bring it in sometime during the week, drop it off with them. Now, if you work Monday through Friday, you're going to have extra complications trying to get your vehicle to the dealership. Yes, most dealerships have Saturday hours as well, but a lot of times they're a lot more limited. And again, in my case, I've run into maybe their lube technician didn't show up. Matter of fact, the last time I tried to get my vehicle looked at, it was going to be a minimum of 3 weeks wait time to set an appointment to get into the dealership. And that's honestly why I kind of thought I need to start getting back into doing more of this stuff myself. Number 7, not all vehicles are the same. Now again, there's some obvious differences we talked about before. Gas or diesel engine. Most diesel vehicles are going to use a different type of oil and probably a lot more of it. However, take my F-150 and my wife's Palisade. The amount of oil, the type of oil, the style of drain plug, where the oil filter is and the style of the filter, all very different things. So I have everything I need to change the oil on my truck, but if I was going to do it on her car, I need to get some other additional tools. I also have the benefit that my truck from the factory sits up very high, so I don't need to jack the truck up or lift it up on ramps to get up under it. I can squeeze under there no problem as it is. but my wife's car, it's going to be a different story. So just know if you've changed oil on multiple vehicles before you do it for the first time on a different vehicle, make sure you understand how the process may be different on that car. Because again, maybe you need a different style oil filter wrench. Or like my truck, you need some special Torx bits to get by the skid plate so you can access that oil filter. Those are the kind of things you don't want to find out when you're in the middle of your oil change. Number 8, oil change intervals. Can you trust them? Now for the longest time, older vehicles using conventional motor oil, the typical guidance was to wait about 3,000 miles or maybe 3 months between oil changes. When fully synthetic oil became more popular, that kind of got bumped up to 5,000 miles, maybe every 6 months. But now you're seeing with a lot of newer vehicles from the factory saying 10,000 mile oil change intervals. Now I don't know about you, but myself and a lot of other car guys out there really kind of raised our eyebrows when this started becoming real popular. And there is a lot of debate going around the internet right now of whether you should really wait that long between oil change intervals or not. Now there's different reasons why manufacturers are going with this kind of 10,000 mile oil change interval right now. Some people say it's just a marketing gimmick trying to show that, hey, this vehicle, you buy this, you don't have to spend very much money on maintenance because you only have to do these services every 10,000 miles. Some people chalk it up to planned obsolescence. Maybe it's a conspiracy that manufacturers want your vehicle to die after 150,000 miles. That way you have to come in and buy a new one. Others say with just modern engines and modern oils, you don't need to change the fluid that often. Heck, this fluid I just bought claims on the bottle up to 25,000 miles between oil changes. Now, would I take that much time between oil change intervals? No. Realistically, I'm gonna stick more to that 5,000 mile range just to play it safe. If that means I'm throwing a little money down the drain, honestly, I really don't care if it means keeping this truck on the road for a long time. If you do have one of these vehicles that says you can wait up to 10,000 miles, also just kind of understand the climate that you live in. Is it really hot or really cold? Do you drive a lot of highway miles every day? Are you hard on it stop and go traffic? Are you driving some sort of enthusiast car where you're driving it a little harder on weekends or going off-road, doing crazy things, right? Depending on how you drive, may be harder on your oil. Number 9, warranty concerns. Now again, we're talking about newer vehicles here. So make sure you understand your warranty and how the maintenance of your vehicle plays into it. Now I've seen some stuff talking about, again, these 10,000 mile oil changes being the minimum requirement you need. You have to change your oil every 10,000 miles at least to maintain your warranty. But you also want to make sure that if you go out and buy the oil, the filter and everything yourself and change it all in your driveway, is that going to void your warranty? Make sure there's no stipulations of, hey, you have to take care of this service at the dealership. Number 10, our final item I wanted to bring up is you are more capable than you realize. Now for this, I'm talking to the individuals who have never done an oil change or anything like that themselves. Maybe you don't even have a set of basic tools yet. That's okay, right? You don't need a whole lot of stuff in the grand scheme of things to do an oil change. Additionally, as long as you drive a pretty mainstream vehicle that's a popular seller, you can probably find 5 or 10 videos of your exact vehicle of different people walking through the oil change process. So you can see every step of the way, is this something you really want to get your hands dirty on? The benefit of doing this kind of thing yourself is you can really take time to prepare. Make sure you get the right materials. You don't have to rush the job at home. And understand, right? Dealerships, technicians, they're people too. Especially if you go to a quick lube place or something like that. Everyone's busy. They might be trying to get through these jobs as quick as they can because they're getting paid some sort of flat rate to do it. And as with any task, when we rush, even if it's a job we really know how to do very well, and we do it day in and day out, when we start rushing and time is an issue, that's when mistakes get made. So don't think you're immune from making a mistake just because you go and take your car to a dealership or to some kind of quick lube place. Mistakes can still happen. So I don't want that to be the one thing that kind of holds you back from taking on this sort of maintenance yourself. And last but not least, again, if you've never done something like this, just understand, you get a lot of confidence from taking on a small little simple job like this. You'll probably realize that it's honestly probably not as bad as you made it out to be in your head. And at least you can say you tried it. If you find that it really wasn't worth it in the end, every oil change in the future, you can go back to the dealerships. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Again, I just wanted to discuss a few of the topics that I feel like don't come up a lot in a lot of the other oil change related videos. So I hope you found some of this helpful. If you did, feel free, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Say bye.